Welcome to Chicago Jazz TV. I'm Dan Ferris, and joining me is Chicago Jazz great Eric Schneider. We're recording here at the Chicago Jazz Festival, the 2008 edition. And Eric, you're on the fest, and you're about to go on in just a few minutes. Tell us about why you're here.
We're paying tribute to the great saxophonist, the great late saxophonist, Franz Jackson. And the Jazz Institute Committee decided Franz should be honored, and rightfully so. The reason it's such a short performance is all the talent, all the acts have been booked, but they still wanted to honor Franz, so they just gave us 15 to 20 minutes.
Well, at least we're getting some things in, and you're playing the part of the saxophonist, Franz himself.
I'm going to play the saxophone. Now, whether I can be Franz or not is another story. I understand Art Hoyle will be doing the vocals, which should be worth the price of, well, since it's free, it's definitely worth the price of admission, but that should be worth seeing.
Strutting with some barbecue.
Strutting with some barbecue, and also Huffin' and Puffin', which was Franz's sign-off theme.
Well, Eric, you've been on the Chicago jazz scene for longer than you probably care to remember, including a number of these jazz festivals. Why don't you share with us a little bit of the history of the festivals here and your involvement with them?
Oh, man, I've done many. The first time I did it was with a big band we put together to accompany Earl Hines, with whom I was working. And I wrote an arrangement of St. Louis Blues, which hopefully nobody has. But a couple of years later, I worked with the Basie Band when I was with Basie, and I've been probably 7 or 8 more times, including the Dave Brubeck Octet, tribute to Eddie Johnson. I played a couple times at the smaller stages, and I'll tell you what, it's a thrill every time I play the Chicago Jazz Fest. It's home.
Well, it's a thrill for the people listening as well. And I guess we should talk a little bit about how you got your start here in Chicago. I mean, you are a Chicagoan.
Right. I was born on the South Shore, raised on the North Shore. My dad had a collection of records, and I guess I listened to them all the time. And when it was time I was able to improvise on the piano without really knowing what I'm doing, which is kind of like what I'm doing today, 50 years later. But I picked up clarinet in 5th grade, and then saxophone in in high school, and I loved it. And one day I heard Charlie Parker, and that just turned my world around, and kind of stopped playing clarinet, played alto almost exclusively, and played a bunch of gigs in high school, sat in various traditional gigs and swing things, and then I went to school in Champaign, and then after that I got a call to join Jim Beattie's band at the Blackstone Hotel. And from there I went with Earl Hines, and from there I went with Basie. As a matter of fact, it's 25 years ago this month that I left Basie, which is very hard for me to accept.
And Basie was still alive when you were playing with them.
Oh yeah, this was not the Ghost Band, and I don't mean to disrespect the guys currently playing with him, but yeah, this is when Basie was alive, Freddie Green, and many of the original, many members who had been there for 20, 30, 40 years.
It must have been a great thrill. Do you have what you consider to be sort of a first big break?
Definitely playing with Earl Hines. Penny Tyler, who was for many years the president of the Jazz Institute, she and her then boyfriend ran something called Jazz at Noon, which is based on this thing started in New York. The concept is to have 3 musicians, piano, bass, and drums, and then you invite various professional guys, doctors, lawyers, whatever, and there were a lot more of those guys who played music back then, for them to sit in. And I used to do that, and one day Penny called me and said, "You want to be here this Friday because Earl Hines' drummer will be here, and I understand Earl is looking for a new saxophone player." So I did, and Eddie Graham recorded it, and sure enough they did. They were looking for a saxophone player, and I get the call to join Earl, and the rest, as they say, is history.
How'd you get the Basie gig?
Again, kind of through another one of the presidents of the Jazz Institute, Ed Crilly. Ed was a big jazz fan, owned several radio stations in Wisconsin and Minnesota. Anyhow, the Basie Band was on the Queen Elizabeth, and word reached Ed that they were looking for a new saxophone player because Kenny Hing was going to leave. And Ed said, "I know just the guy," which was Eddie Johnson. And Eddie Johnson didn't want to do it, but Eddie said, "What about Eric Schneider?" So Ed Crilly called me, and I thought he was putting me on, quite frankly. So I called up Ed. He said, no, it's for real. So I met Ed Crilly, and that was the beginning of a very long friendship. So the Basie Band had 3 gigs at the end of a tour, and Springfield, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, and Chicago. And those 3 days were more or less my audition, and I apparently passed, because I was then invited to play the same tenor chair that Lester Young occupied. And that's one of my thrills of a lifetime.
You know, Chicago jazz fans have seen Eric play around town in so many different venues. You've been in small group as well as in big bands. Do you have a favorite?
Definitely small group, because I love just playing with the rhythm section or maybe another horn. Now, I love playing with the big band as well if the big band is good, and most of the big bands I play with are very good, but in a small group, I can blow, which is what I truly love doing most.
What do you call your style of jazz? Do you put a label on it, or are you just a fan of all types?
I'm a fan of all types. What I play is influenced by what job I have. Now today we're playing a tribute to Franz. This will be more traditional in Dixieland, so I play that style. If I'm hired to play clarinet exclusively in a Benny Goodman or Artie Shaw context, I guess that would be swing. I do a lot of bebop things. I've done Bird with strings many times with symphony orchestras. There I'm playing bebop. So my style is kind of a combination of all of those, plus more modern, but I try to be faithful to some extent to the idiom. You can't be playing Coltrane if you're playing 1938 Basie songs.
One of the things that gives you a perspective on the city and the jazz scene that a lot of people don't have, having so many different experiences. What do you think about the jazz scene in Chicago, let's say today compared with 25, 30 years ago?
Well, 25, 30 years ago, I was on the road, but I would come back when we were off. It seemed to me that there were more places that offered steadier employment. There were some hotels and some clubs where people would be working 5, 6 nights a week. These days, that's very, very rare. If you had a 5 or 6 night a week gig, you were pretty much set, unless you annoyed the wrong people and got fired. Today it's one night here, one night there, and it's tougher, I think.
What do you think of today's talent pool?
There's some great players out there, but they're misguided and they need direction, and they have to learn that jazz did not start in 1964 with John Coltrane.
And the missing ingredients?
Swing, beauty, lyricism, knowledge of songs, learning how to play in a small group. I mean, you just don't get up there and play. You have to be conscientious of what the rhythm section. As a horn player, I try to make it interesting for the people in the rhythm section too. Many horn players abuse them. They'll play 40 choruses, give the piano player 1 chorus, and then take it out. That's not right. You continue to do that, the guys in the rhythm section become bugged. And if they're bugged, they're not going to play as well as they might otherwise.
Well, Eric, we want to thank you for coming by the Chicago Jazz booth here at the festival. We've had a good turnout today, and with the festival being on a hot day like this, it's great weather, so we've got a good turnout of fans. And we're trying to connect people with the city, and it's great of you to stop by on this hot day and share a little bit of your jazz insight with us. And we hope to see you up on the stage in just a few minutes doing that Franz Jackson tribute.
Thank you. The pleasure was mine for being here, and thank you.
Eric Schneider, everybody. This has been Chicago Jazz TV. Come back again for another edition soon.